It's time to play general manager with the Houston Astros, and it's a perfect time to do it because the Astros are reportedly listening on Kyle Tucker and Framber Valdez. They saw what Juan Soto got in the open market, 765. And I tweeted out the biggest winner here outside of the Mets and Mets fans is Kyle Tucker because he's going to be a free agent after next year. He'll be 28, but about 29 when that season officially starts. He's coming off a season where he put up a 993 OPS. He hit 23 home runs in 78 games. He's been a 5-win player by WAR over the last 4 seasons, has consistently been one of the best overall players in baseball. Overall, right? In the last couple of seasons, he ranks 10th in WRC plus since 2021, a 145 WRC plus. That's 10th best in Major League Baseball. But then also Framber Valdez, right? The ground ball king. I said Max Fried is second in baseball in ground ball rate last year. Framber Valdez was number one. We know that he's a big time playoff performer. We know that he's a workhorse, going to be a guy to give you 180 to 200 innings. There's a handful of guys who go 200. Framber is one of them. And now both of them are free agents after next year. Bregman is still a free agent. They have plenty of other outstanding free agents. So they have a decision to make. Is Bregman gone? We're trading both Framber and Kyle Tucker, and we're blowing it up, even though we still have Yordan Alvarez, even though we still have Jose Altuve, even though we were in the playoffs last year? Or do we take a little bit of the helium out of this balloon that's been blown up out of proportion? They end up not signing any of them. Maybe they bring back Alex Bregman. Maybe they add, and this team could go toe-to-toe with any in the American League because the American League is so wide open. It's so wide open, right? The National League, you got the Mets, you got the Phillies, you got the Braves, you got the Dodgers, you got the Padres, you got the D-backs, you got the Brewers, you got teams in the Central coming up too. There's so much competition. In the American League, the Yankees, quote unquote, by all of baseball, had a cakewalk to the playoffs. And the Yankees just lost Juan Soto. So now the Astros are going to trade these guys. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What was your first reaction when you heard we're listening on Kyle Tucker and Framber?
Framber, I understood. Like I kind of saw him as a candidate just off of the 1 year left, the money there. Their pitching is kind of in a decent spot, so I could see them justifying it there. Kyle Tucker, made me upset. Like I, I understand that their philosophy is listen on everyone, but you can't in the same breath say we are looking for any opportunity to upgrade our team and then also say we're listening on Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
There is no return that you're going to get for 1 year of Kyle Tucker that is going to give you a better chance or even an equal chance of winning the division next year. I'm sorry, there's just no shot.
Yeah.
Like I understand he missed a lot of time last year with the fractured shin. He's been durable and available mostly otherwise, and that's not even really a concern anyways. I understand that they're afraid of losing him in free agency, and that's what's going to happen anyways. If you want to give it your best shot, Jose Altuve is 34 years old.
Yep.
Like this is going to be with Kyle Tucker on the field. Like what does that outfield look like without Kyle Tucker? I don't even understand that what they would do. Like outside of Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, and Yainer Diaz, who's the fourth best hitter on that team if you trade Kyle Tucker? Jeremy
Pena,
Pena? Yeah, like
not good enough.
and I understand that it's pitching centric and they've got these guys and they don't have a lot of wiggle room right now because at the end of the day, like they don't typically, at least the last year or so, like Crane has not really wanted to go past the CBT threshold and they're right up against it right now. But I'm sorry, I'm finding any other way to clear up money other than trading, I think, one of the best, more well-rounded players in baseball in Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I agree. And we can go back to the Soto deal and say, well, could they potentially get a Michael King, a Drew Thorpe, and three more prospects? I don't think so because Kyle Tucker is fantastic, but he's not quite Juan Soto. We can go back to the Mookie Betts deal when he was traded from Boston to LA, and we can look at that one and say, well, the Red Sox got fleeced. But at the time, it was a 23-year-old Alex Verdugo who was coming off a season where he slashed 294, 342, 475. So we know who Alex Verdugo is now at 29 years old, but at the time, he was a top prospect coming off 106 games of well above average production at the plate as an offensive piece. Then they got the 44th overall prospect in Jeter Downs, and they got a top 15-ish prospect in the Dodgers system in Connor Wong. So they got a ton, but it can go wrong. And it doesn't necessarily help you the year after, right? We've seen what the Red Sox have done over the last few seasons, really since 2020, outside of that year in 2021, where they were great, but it hasn't gone exactly well for the Red Sox. Now it's looking great, right? The situation in Boston is awesome and they should be excited, but for a while there, it didn't look great. And Red Sox fans were certainly licking their wounds. And the thing is, the Astros should be worried about optics here. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of fans here. If you let Bregman go, then you trade Framber,
Yeah.
and then you trade Kyle Tucker. Or even if you don't trade Framber and it's just Kyle Tucker. But if you trade Kyle Tucker, you should probably trade Framber too. You're just tearing it down
Yeah.
in a wide open American League. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So, Aram, if we were more interested in clicks, we could follow this mode. We could trade away Kyle Tucker. We could trade away Framber Valdez. We could talk about Bregman to another team. But that's not what we do here. We operate under expectations and historical data of what these teams have done. And the Astros are not in a tear it down phase, and they also haven't done that in a very, very long time. It makes absolutely no sense to me that they would trade Tucker. And to be honest, you said it kind of makes sense for Framber. To me, it doesn't. They should not be trading Framber because you take Framber out of this rotation, the pitching situation is not decent, right? It looks a lot better when you have Framber. So I would not trade Framber either. And we could talk
I think
about some potential moves here, but I wouldn't do it at all.
I think it's a decent rotation still. I mean, obviously, best foot forward is keeping both, and I think they should.
Hunter
But then
Brown's the ace, and then
you got Ronel Blanco, who had a fantastic year. He had a 2.8 and 167 innings. Spencer
Willie
Arrighetti was
replicated
really
it.
good in the second half. I think looks like he could be a dude. Luis Garcia is healthy.
Yeah.
And then that's where it's like, okay, you're going to have to sign somebody. So that's where it's interesting. But right now, they're roughly expected to be about 12 million under the luxury tax threshold. And it seems like they're clearly operating in a way that they can't go over that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can make this team significantly better within those constraints, but they clearly are. The reports are shopping Ryan Presley. Like, find a way to dump him, and
Yeah.
I think you can. Like, he's expensive. I think it's 14 million. I think you can pay it down a little bit and dump him to a team that's looking to get some reliever help. And I actually think we can join these playing GM episodes. I think you can be dumped to the Royals, and you pay down like 4 million of it. But like, there's one move I'll float to you with Framber, and then if you just say, not worth it, then I'm with just holding on and then piecing it together. I still think that's their best bet. Here's my question to you, and I think this is the question that they need to ask themselves. What I thought was interesting is Dana Brown said, win the division. He didn't say win the World Series, and the expectation should be win the World Series. Maybe it was just, the way he was speaking, and
Yeah.
that's just all he was saying. And you have a little bit more control over winning the division than the World Series. Playoffs are always a crapshoot. But this team, as constructed, if you make a couple signings here and there that do not accumulate to more than 12 million AAV, can they win the World Series? Could this group win the World Series?
I think they have a decent shot of making it, but I would have them losing to about 4 or 5 teams in the National League.
But you
And
think they could make the
that's
World Series?
and that's if the Yankees aren't making more moves.
This
And the
thing,
Guardians, I think, just upgraded a little bit. I think the Orioles are definitely going to be better. They just added Tyler O'Neill, and I know that they just lost out on Max Fried, but they ain't done yet. They're going to compete here. I still expect the Rangers to bounce back slightly. I still like the Mariners. I still think that there's a couple of teams in the Central, especially the Royals, and of course the Guardians and the Tigers who will compete. I mean, the Tigers just beat this team last year. So
and
the
they're
answer to your
spending, they're getting
question is
better.
no.
Yeah.
The answer to your question is no.
So if that's the answer, then I think you have to trade one of these guys. I think one of them's got to go. And I'm not trading Tucker. So that's where I think you can maybe move Framber. I have one trade that I think can make sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. The Phillies want an arm. They've been continuing to be in on Crochet. I don't think that they're going to end up matching up there. The reports are that they've kind of cooled ever since the Phillies gave their best offer that the White Sox considered the end of last year. And then they said no. And now the Phillies offer is much more reserved because now it's two pennant races potentially instead of three with Crochet there. I don't think they're bringing back Bregman. As much as they want to say that they are, they're not. There's no way. If you're, you can't also be looking to potentially move Tucker or whatever and then be confident that you're going to bring Bregman back. Would trading Framber to the Phillies, which by the way, he's expected to make around 18.8, $19 million next year, Framber, in arbitration. You trade him to the Phillies, you get Alec Boehm back, who then now plugs right in at third. And I like the way he could play in the Crawford boxes there. It adds to the lineup. Look, he's not a superstar. He's not Alex Bregman, but he is a much needed, just solid bat into the fold here. And then you also get a couple prospects back. I was thinking Starlene Caba, who's top 100 for us, thinking the top 75, and then Gabriel Rincones is top 15 in their system. Their farm system is putrid. They need some pieces in there, whether you're trying to win now or not. Like it would help a lot. So you get two pieces that would instantly upgrade the farm system. Alec Boehm helps you, and now you have roughly 10 million cleared up to reinvest into the rotation, which you could go sign Texas native Nady Eovaldi. You could go sign somebody else and bolster that rotation. You're going to lose Framber anyways. You would get 2 years of Alec Boehm. You'd get prospects that bolster the system. And then now you have 10 million additional in space to work with. If you dump Presley as well, it could be 20 million that you can now allocate to a Nady Eovaldi. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, a Walker Buehler on a bounce back, whoever else that would be in that like $18 million range or $17 million range.
Here's what I'm struggling with. Because a move for Boehm is that you're saying that we're still competing this year and that we want to go win the division.
Well, you got him for 2 years.
Yeah, but then at the second year, then Tucker's probably gone.
Yeah, but you have a third baseman. Who's playing third?
Yeah, I mean, who is playing third? I mean, we got to talk about it. We got to fill because right now it's who is it?
It's Zach DeZenzo, probably.
That's just not going to cut it. So here's what I would do, and maybe you disagree here. I think that's more of a move to still compete right now. But the thing is, if you take Framber, who has been so consistent, so big for them in big time games, if you take him out of the rotation, there's too many question marks without a frontline ace. When you move everybody down, it makes a lot more sense. So I think that the rotation gets a hell of a lot worse. And maybe I have more questions about the rotation than you do, right? I'm still questioning if Ronel Blanco bounces back or not bounces back, continues this path, right? So Luis Garcia off an injury. I'm questioning that. So if I'm trading Framber, I'm almost saying that I'm tearing it down a little bit and I need to replenish this farm system. So I don't think that does enough. And then I don't think Boehm is impactful enough to keep this offense afloat because in this scenario, we're also losing Bregman, who has been huge for them offensively and is definitely way better than Boehm is at this current juncture.
Yeah, he's
So
definitely.
I just wouldn't do it. I would go all in this year and try and win the World Series. And if I'm the Astros, and here's the thing, let's compete this year and go over the luxury tax this year and try and win the whole thing. One last hurrah. And then we'll start to get rid of contracts. And then we'll never be over that luxury tax for the next decade.
Yeah.
That's how I would operate. But here's the thing. It's like, I have a couple of moves here that we're going over the luxury tax. But this team can win the World Series with the roster that I've constructed instead of trading Framber.
If they go over, I feel like it's going to be barely.
Yeah,
So
it would be barely in my way of doing things right here.
So I'm with that. I think it was good to just that. This is why the Dana Brown will say, "We'll listen," because that kind of scenario could give them some pause. Say, okay, like that could help us, but now they come to the conclusion that you said, you know what? it's going to be kind of a lateral move, or at best, we might as well just go all in this year and see what we can
Yeah.
do. So if they resort to that, I think you try to dump a couple other guys to clear up some money, and let's just get that out of the way first.
Yeah,
And
let's
I want to
trade
tie this.
Presley.
I want to tie this in with the Royals actually, because I think
Do
the
it.
Royals should go get Presley because
Let's
they're
do it.
willing to take on some money. He's cheap. Let's say you get Presley and they pay it down. What do you think? They have to pay half of it down?
Depending on the prospect return.
I was just going to give them a depth like starter arm. Chandler Champlain, who was not even protected in the Rule 5, but did have a lot of prospect intrigue, can eat innings. Like Presley was not very good. And I know he had a great finish to the year, but even then, the peripherals were bad. Like he was a 17% strikeout rate for him. He's
Yeah.
36 years old. I think it's a good shot to take for the Royals, who could just use more bullpen arms, and he's a vet, and I think they could just use more vets. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they need to pay it down that much. I would say they pay it down 4 million, and then they get Chandler Champlain back and just call it a day there.
Let's do
That
it.
clears up 10 mil,
That's so we just cleared up 10 mil.
and it gives them some starting pitching depth, which they need. A guy that could, in emergency, plug in there and be better than Forrest Whitley, which is kind of my bar at this point. Um, why did why did they tender a contract to Mauricio Dubon? He's kind of expensive. 6.5 is what he's expected to get in ARB. Can you just dump Mauricio Dubon?
I'm sure somebody would take him. Someone would definitely take Mauricio Dubon. Can play all over. I think
I
we
would
can get
dump.
rid of him.
I think you got to dump Dubon too, because
So
like
let's dump him.
wherever for prospects, who would
Yeah.
take a Mauricio Dubon? Like
Uh,
he's a great like utility piece. So maybe the fact that they tendered him a contract and felt like I mean, 6.5 is cheap ultimately when you're talking about a guy that I'm looking at the game logs. I'm probably hating a little too much. Like he played everywhere, dude,
everywhere.
like everywhere. But if you're looking to like, if that's money that can help you upgrade the team, let's see if we have to.
Okay.
Let's see if we have to. This guy, by the way, just to plug Dubon as like a mini apology here. 67 games in left, 22 games in second, 22 in center, 20 at first, 13 in right, 10 at third, and 5 at short. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty.
So only if we have to. So we just cleared up 10 more million. They have roughly $20 million to work with to stay under the CBT. What do you have cooked up for these guys?
So, and maybe, we're on some financial restraints, so this is tough, but I want to trade for Josh Naylor from the Guardians. And he's going to make about 14, though. It's a
He is,
little
but
bit
that is a
expensive.
fun fit. That is a fun fit, and it's what, only one more year of control.
One more year of control, so it's 1 year at 14, and then he's a free agent. Big time
They could
power.
use a Mauricio Dubon now.
They wouldn't mind using a Mauricio
Mm.
Dubon. So we can do a little bit of a money exchange here. Can we get Mauricio Dubon? Is that
Helps
what they
lessen the
want
prospect
for
return a little
Naylor?
bit.
I think we got to send Dubon somewhere else. We just want Dubon to be on the. They should probably. I mean, how many of these like good defensive infielders who have a
Yeah, which is
questionable
why they
bat?
traded, and that's why the Guardians did it. By the way, like they have so many defensive middle infielders in the fold there, and like they're just gonna plug in now like Angel Martinez or
Yeah,
Brian Rocchio or something else, and they'll be fine there. I think Rocchio's gonna end up just rolling it short. But you look at the bench; they got Gabriel Arias, now
yeah.
Horwitz there. Yeah, they don't have much use of a Dubon probably. Uh, yeah, what's the return for Josh? I mean, 14 million. The prospect return wouldn't be like too ridiculous, and that's the thing is like they don't have much to work with here, the Astros, in terms of a farm system. It's one of baseball's worst.
Can I give you an idea?
Let's hear it.
And this is a guy who I'm still not giving up on. Arm. He was throwing 97-mile-an-hour sinkers last year. Forrest Whitley.
Oh God.
Include him. No, I'm not saying just. I'm saying you got a 27-year-old who's 6'8", 250 pound. Um, he didn't give up a run in 3 innings last year. But that maybe potentially there's still some intrigue there, and then maybe a little bit more.
Hmm.
Obviously, a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
mean they can make it happen, right? Like they've got some arms of intrigue. Miguel Loyola is really interesting.
What
22
about
years
him
old.
and what about him and Whitley? Give him two pitchers for him.
Is that too light though for? what was the final stat line here for uh Josh Naylor?
31 home runs, but not great defense
Not great defense.
for a year
Also,
of
like
him.
it's 1 year of him at $14 million.
Two pitchers with a lot of control.
I like Whitley might be nothing.
I don't
Like
think he's
just
nothing. I
respectfully.
don't think he's nothing. He
Um,
didn't give up a run all of last year, dude.
yeah. Let me see the AAA numbers for Forrest Whitley here. I mean, he is worth a flyer,
Yeah,
I
he's worth a
guess.
flyer.
What did he do in trips? Not
Quite great.
terrible.
Yeah.
Not terrible. Oh my gosh, he was actually dominant in trips. Okay.
Okay. We're cooking here
Yeah, I think Whitley and Oyola
for Naylor.
might be a little light if people think it is. Shit, throw in another. I can't conceptualize Naylor too much because of the 1 year at that price point as a first base only. Like,
And
I
not a
think that's,
great one at that.
yeah, like I think that's solid. I think that'll work.
So, and the Guardians are basically saying though, with these two pitchers, is like you're kind of paying all of it, or at least most of it.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah. You're not getting a lot, you're taking it all on.
So we can go bargain hunting for third baseman, or we can go over the cap and just say, let's go get Bregman. And now we have Naylor and Bregman and all this lineup. I
Oh, it'd be
mean, we can
insane.
still compete. We
I
can
think they
get
could
out
win the
of the
World
American
Series.
League with this team.
Yeah. So I was like I thought that they were going to be so cheap that if they keep everybody, they're just going to go short platoon first base and go with like like a Justin Turner, Patrick Wisdom, Carlos Santana. But
Carlos
Carlos
Santana.
Santana, is he going to be that much cheaper? Like I like signing Carlos Santana too. Like that
I think he
he's
might
not
be a
going to be a
little
long-term
expensive.
deal.
I think he might be a little bit He's coming off a really, really good year last year.
Yeah, what is Carlos Santana? There's no way he's getting 14 though, is he?
He might.
At 39?
He might.
What do you think? Trade and take on 14 or sign Santana? A 3-win season.
Yeah.
Um, Sign Santana and go from there. Right? The defense is a lot better. You don't have to trade anything. And like even if you call it a wash at 14 million, like Santana wants to play 3 or 4 more seasons.
He wants to sign a Christian Walker deal, and I'd give it to him. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if he
But
wants a multi-year deal, like I don't think that's going to happen over here. Um, so I think it's
trade for Naylor.
trade for Naylor.
So what the hell are we doing at third then? I mean, can you let us, Dana? Can you?
It's up to Mr. Crane. Uh,
Yeah. Because the easy
I think the
decision,
way that they're already operating, like it just tells me that they're not going to.
I know. And if they're not going to, then they wouldn't trade for Naylor anyway. They'd be trading away, not trading for.
Well, this would still put them in a spot where if you're going to lose Bregman, you keep these guys. That pitching staff could be disgusting with Framber.
Yeah.
You still have Tucker. You add Naylor to that team, like that team can win a World Series if you have a couple good low budget additions. I think DeZenzo could hold it down at third if everything goes right, but that's an ambitious hope.
Yeah.
Um, like, is there a bargain hunt kind of move,
I
like
don't,
in the
the
free
thing
agent
is,
side?
like you could say, well, Josh Rojas is coming off a nearly 2-win season with the Mariners. He was really good for Arizona in 2022. That's why he was included in that Paul Sewald trade. He's a free agent, but he is 31 and he wasn't any good offensively last year. What is he going to want in a deal? Um, I mean, you could be the 12th team to give JD Davis a shot. You could sign John Birdie, right? You could sign Yoan Moncada. Ugh,
Zach DeZenzo is tearing it up for San Juan right now in the Winter League.
that means
Um,
nothing to me.
I so DeZenzo did just crack the top 100. I think he was like 97th for us.
Do we just roll there?
I think you can roll with him and then sign like an insurance policy, like a Gio or Shell or something.
Yeah.
But Dubon can kind of be that insurance policy, I guess.
Yeah, unless are we dumping Dubon?
We're still under the amount of money right now. We're still
Okay.
okay.
We could keep Dubon, I guess. I mean, we could
What else are
also
you going to do? Are there more moves?
Paul DeYoung hit 24 home runs last year. He could play some third.
I I do kind of like DeYoung, and he could also just be a good lefty masher for you.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think you just go Paul DeYoung.
Paul
The
DeYoung.
short porch, he loves to pull it. Add him as just in case, like DeZenzo needs some more time. He holds it down there in the meantime, and then but I do think DeZenzo can play. I do. So I like that. Cheap deal.
Unfortunately, that's probably it.
That's probably it. But
I
again,
mean,
this conversation, like we just did a full circle here. I tried to pitch you on trading Framber. We didn't. They've
yeah,
upgraded the offense. You have to roll the dice a little bit with a DeZenzo, but like if he plays at a high, like this guy has plus power, and he's elevating the ball more than ever. Finally, a good approach. Like he could be a good rookie next year. Like he's 24. He demolished AAA pitching. You're rolling the dice here, but sometimes you got to do that. You upgraded first base. You got to hope Yiner takes another step forward. But at the end of the day, you still have Kyle Tucker. You still have Jose Altuve. You still have Jordan freaking Alvarez. And now you added Josh Naylor, which is like a bat. Like they were missing the middle tier bats, right? It
yes.
dropped off really quickly. You add another middle tier bat there. You extend that meat of the lineup a little bit.
Maybe Chas McCormick does bounce back.
He can't be worse.
I also
Yeah.
mentioned that they could be trading Chas McCormick.
Is that another guy that they're floating a trade for?
Yeah, it's just he's coming off a really bad year. He makes money, which
Yeah.
means that if the
Makes more
Astros
than
are
zero.
he makes more than $0 that, if they were already listening on trades for an outfielder, maybe they would listen on a different outfielder who is not exactly a part of their long-term future. But I don't know if they exactly will do it. But I think it's worth a call for a lot of teams.
But I like that team has a shot.
It
You're
does.
pitching centric. You need the bullpen to perform the way that it can. You
I think
have
it is
Josh
more
freaking
than a
Hader.
shot. I think it
Yeah.
is more than a shot. I think going into next year, if the Yankees don't make a lot of moves, and neither do the Orioles, the Astros could be one of the favorites to get out of the American League. They might be the favorite if they follow this. And then
Yeah.
in that last year, let's say they do make it to the World Series, and let's say they take the Dodgers or the Mets or the Braves or the Phillies or whoever to 6 or 7 games. I mean, what a run for this dynasty!
And that's the thing. It's like give it one more shot. And the
Yeah,
last thing I'll say is if they're off to a good start and third base is still a bit of a disaster, then you go to Jim Crane and say, we're good. Like we're gonna lose these guys. We got one more chance at this. Let us go make a trade and take on some money, or let us do something. And that might be able to happen at that point. So I could see it working that way too. I like that. I mean, this is enough to where I think you justify keeping the squad together for one more run.
so, and just to recap, right? Because really the only big addition that we made is Josh Naylor into this lineup. So the lineup would look something like Altuve, Tucker, Jordan, Yiner, Josh Naylor, Jeremy Pena, DeCenzo at third, Chas McCormick, and Jake Myers. It's a good
And
lineup.
and then the rotation with Framber as the anchor, the
Framber,
righties there have
Brown.
like there's impact there. Like if they do like I understand your concern, but also the upside there. If those guys are all
Yeah,
throwing the way that they can and build off of what they did last year, you get Javier maybe back at the end of the year. I don't know what Lance McCullers' deal is, but maybe he
nobody
comes
does.
back. I have no idea. Like they got arms.
They do have arms, and the bullpen is still good, even if they give away Ryan Presley, because Taylor Scott, Brian King, even Caleb Ort was great for them in a limited sample. I mean, they've been able to spawn guys, and you know that they have some arms that maybe we haven't even heard of yet that'll end up being big time relievers in this pen. And then, of course, you still have Josh Hader, and you still have Brian Abreu. So, yeah, this team can compete with any in the American League if they just make a few moves, even if they lose Alex Bregman. So, I
Yeah.
guess my last question before we move on to the Royals is Alex Bregman gone?
I just can't see them keeping him. I think if they were keeping him, they would have done it by now. I understand that they always talk about the optimism. They said the same thing about Correa. I think he's gone, especially because you have the Yankees who are hungry right now and are probably going to throw more money. You
Blue
have
Jays.
the Blue Jays who are hungry and
Yeah.
might be throwing some money. Like I just I think teams are going to be too desperate for a big time bat and a good player that yeah, I use before I was saying like I think they both need each other too much. but I think too many teams need a player like Bregman too badly now. After the Soto frenzy, seeing the scramble, uh, the money's going to be too much.
So all we did here with the Houston Astros playing general managers, we traded for Josh Naylor from the Cleveland Guardians, and we traded away Ryan Presley to the Kansas City Royals. And it's a great transition into playing general manager here with the Kansas City Royals. But before that, our last break. Playing general manager with the Kansas City Royals. I'm very, very excited here because I think that the Royals plan this season, in this offseason, is very straightforward. And I think once we're done signing all of these guys, people are going to look at the Royals and say, holy shit, this team could not only win the division, but it makes some major noise in the playoffs. Let's go over some offseason moves that they've already done already. They acquired Jonathan India and Joey Weimer in exchange for Brady Singer, and they also re-signed Michael Wacha to a 3-year deal. Now, Aram, I actually want to get your take on this because I remember when I talked about this trade, I think with Jack when it happened, we were focusing a lot on the Reds portion of the deal, getting Brady Singer. I'd love to hear your take on the Royals adding a guy like Jonathan India.
I love it. It's the exact need they had. I think, was a bit of a luxury for them. And I like some of the other arms that they have that I think can grab a back end rotation spot, or they're just going to go get somebody else. And India, I know people talk about the home road splits. If you look at park factor, right next to Cincinnati in terms of the most hitter friendly ballparks was Kansas City. So like he's going to be the same guy. He's going to like this whole team was that way. Demolish at home, not as good on the road. He's going to be productive. He fills a more important void for them offensively. They just needed a solid hitter. They just needed a guy that's going to give you a WRC plus around 110, maybe higher than that, instead of a lot of these kind of you hope it works guys that give you flashes but aren't as consistent. Like I loved it for them. I liked it for both parties. This is one of those trades where I thought it just made a lot of sense for both sides.
I agree. I thought it was a complete win-win. Oh, also, 5 minutes ago, Nathan Eovaldi is returning to the Texas Rangers on a 3-year deal worth $75 million.
Good thing we did not mock that. Good job, Peter.
Yeah, great job. Yeah. So first of all, great deal for Texas. Clearly, they get back a guy. I'm just a little bit surprised because I thought that the Texas Rangers were going to be operating under some constraints due to the television rights contracts disputes that have been happening. But they get their guy back clearly at 25 million per. Probably a ton of teams were after him, and the Rangers said, "Yeah, you're still a beast. We want you back."
Texas guy. I think they may get a little hometown discount. I'm curious, but regardless, I think there had to be some similar offers in that range, and he was more than happy to go back to Texas. This really helps because I like some of the upside that they have in that rotation, but now you got a clear cut, solid, consistent arm that has just been producing for them over the last couple of years. I feel really good about the Rangers going into next year too now, but even more reason for the Astros to, I think try to add and make this thing, solid and give it their best foot forward. But I'm excited for the Rangers too.
So I apologize, Royals fans, for slightly diverting to the Nathan Eovaldi news, but we're back to playing general manager for your team. Like we said, Jonathan India, great addition to the team, especially on that offense. Re-signed Michael Wacha to a 3-year deal. The offense finished 14th in OPS, 20th in home runs, 11th in steals. We could still upgrade it. Starting pitching was phenomenal, 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 but they did lose Brady Singer, and the bullpen could definitely use some work. 20th in ERA, 23rd in WHIP. They got some outstanding free agents, and I don't know if they're going to bring any of them back. Yuli Gurriel, Tommy Pham, Will Smith, Robbie Grossman, Michael Lorenzen, Garrett Hampson, and Paul DeYoung. Do you see them bringing any of those guys back?
Probably
No.
not. No.
But I think all of them will eventually get a deal with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The Royals have a couple of clear needs, and I think it's a pretty straightforward process, and this is why I'm excited. I wrote outfield, outfield, outfield 3 times. Outfield,
Yeah.
outfield, outfield 3 times. Because when we look at the Royals' current outfield situation, it's not exactly ideal, right? You got Hunter Renfroe in right field, who his calling card is his arm in right field. He doesn't really
That's
have
it.
any. He doesn't really have any range, and he slugged 392 last year. At 33 years old, I would try and move on from him. You got MJ Melendez, who's a part of your core per se, but the only issue is that offensively, he hasn't really developed like a lot of us thought he would.
Mhm.
But at 26 years old, you're giving him another chance. And then in center field, we have Kyle Isabel, who's certainly an elite defender out there in center field, has plenty of speed. Didn't really result in a lot of stolen bases, though, at just 11. And he's another guy who isn't really able to use this speed because he's only getting on base at a 287 clip. So we need an influx of outfield help on this team. The starting rotation, of course, when you lose Brady Singer, I'd like to get a depth starter, and I think I have a banger idea for that. And then I would also like some bullpen depth because you're going to get back Hunter Harvey, who the Royals did trade for at the deadline. So that's another upgrade. And towards the end of the season, especially in the playoffs, I was really, really intrigued by some of the younger arms in this Royals bullpen and how they stepped up too. So while the full season numbers don't look great, I think the Royals bullpen is better than that, but I still want to add more arms in there. So I have a couple of options that aren't really that expensive
Mhm.
that make the Royals a really dangerous team next year. Did I miss anything when you're looking
No,
at their roster for next year?
no, I think you could say third base, but I don't know if it's
No, we
as
can't
essential.
though.
Yeah,
No,
they've
we
got the
can't
franchise.
because yeah, that's the franchise. What do you mean, Michael
Yeah, they
Garcia?
got Michael
No,
Garcia, the franchise over
yeah,
there
the
at the hot
franchise.
corner.
Yeah,
Uh,
the expected
so
numbers are going to kick in one day. I promise.
one day,
Yeah,
it's 626 plate appearances last year, man. That's so many.
a large
You should.
sample. It's a large
That's a
sample.
large sample. I'm with you. I think the bullpen is better than it looks, but they definitely need some. We did give them Ryan Presley if we want to do a crossover here.
Yes.
Um, I love the vet addition there. But I still think they could add one more. I'm with you. Like I could see them wanting to add a vet arm. I being the prospect head I am, and we just did the Royal system. I love Noah Cameron. He had a
Who
breakout year.
doesn't? I have no idea who that
No one knows who he is.
is.
He had a breakout year last year, and I like everything that he did, like Arsenal wise. He his fastball jumped a tick. He gained like an inch plus a vert. Now it's like a cut ride fastball. He eliminated some horizontal. He changed his curveball to where it's now more vertical. He added a cutter, and his command is solid. He's a fun, like to me, he's kind of Jordan Montgomery ish. And if
Hmm.
he's like 70% of Jordan Montgomery or 80% of Jordan Montgomery, like it's a solid fifth starter. I think he could be as good as a four starter. They're going to make Bubic a starter, but also that is a risk coming off of injury.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Like I could see the need for another arm. Alec Marsh kind of was a little bit up and down, but I would prioritize if there is a priority, but you could do both. Outfield, I agree with you. Like outfield is the spot where they need to figure it out. And I wonder if India is going to play a little left, maybe if they try that, but you can't bank on that.
Yeah.
What do you want to do in the outfield? I have a couple trades that I was thinking about. Um, I don't know if you were going because they did say, I think there was one report that was like in the Athletic, I think it was Ken Rosenthal, that they are exploring the trade market for a bat. And that's where I immediately went to the Cubs. And
So
I thought,
here's the thing. I think there's the perfect free agent out there, Anthony Santander. I think this is a perfect landing spot for him. And you could say, well, are the Royals really going to be in the market for a guy who might command a 9-figure deal? Maybe not. But man, it's such a perfect fit. A switch hitter. This team was 20th in home runs last year. And
yeah,
I don't think the Royals can continue to bank on Salvador Perez continuing to hit home runs at this pace. Maybe he does. But look at the rest of your team. Bobby Witt Jr. is a phenomenal all-around player, but he's not a 40 home run guy.
he might be.
Vinny, he might, you know what? I shouldn't have even said that. He could be anything he wants to
Yeah.
be. Like he could be anything he wants
But
to be.
point stands, who else is hitting 30 plus?
They finished 20th in home runs. Like Vinny P is a great all-around hitter. He's not
He's
the
not hitting
big time
40.
power guy. And
He's
then you
not.
look at the rest of their team, right? It's Michael Massey, it's Michael Garcia. Like it's a lot of guys who are well-rounded baseball players. You might not even say that about Michael Garcia, but what we do know is that they just don't have a lot of power. And to get a switch hitter like that in their lineup, who plays right field, so you get rid of Hunter Renfroe, I love the fit. I love it so
I,
much. You put 40 home runs in that lineup. I mean, we're cooking a little bit more protection for Bobby Witt Jr. If Salvi is ever to go down, you know, he just continues to get older. I love Salvi, but it's just the reality of being a human being that it's really
yeah.
hard to then continue to stay healthy here. Man, I love the fit, but I
I,
understand if it's a little bit too
I
expensive.
think I might even picked him on the free agent prediction to go
Yeah,
there. So I love the fit too. I, for all those reasons though, I also really like Seiya Suzuki as a potential fit.
let's talk. Go ahead.
Got a no trade clause, but I think he would waive it. Clearly, they've been trying to move him. It's 2 years, $38 million.
Worth it.
Worth
I
it,
can hit.
but also could limit the prospect return a tad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know the Cubs have Moises Ballesteros, but they could use some more catcher help, especially because I have some concerns about him being able to stick at catcher. Breakout prospect in their system last year was Carter Jensen. I think Carter Jensen, like he's a stud, and he just performed well in the Arizona Fall League, right in front of a lot of Cub scouts. I think like Carter Jensen, who was also like I think number 3 prospect in the Royal system that we just put out. Check that out on justbaseball.com. And Hero Wyatt, who is a pitcher, 3rd round pick in 2023, finished the year really well in low A, top 15 prospect as well in the system. For Seiya Suzuki, I think Carter Jensen, fringe top 100 guy, Hero Wyatt, top 15 in the system, and you're taking on a deal that's $38 million. The Cubs want to move him because they're trying to clear up money. I, Maybe it takes another piece, maybe not. I don't know. But Seiya Suzuki would be a really fun addition for all the same reasons that you mentioned as well. The different and I mean I was gonna say defensively like not the best, but neither is Santander, so like who cares?
But Santander is
Right-handed
better than
bat.
Seiya. Seiya's almost he's approaching unplayable in right field. But here's the thing: the reports are saying that Seiya Suzuki fully thinks that he is a right fielder and has no plans on DHing. So he wants to play right field, and maybe this offseason he comes back and he's fine, right? All we need for him to be a valuable player is to be fine in right field because the bat is still really good, I think.
Yeah, I mean it is. And if he wants to be adamant about uh, playing the outfield, like Santander was -2 outs above average, and Seiya Suzuki was -3. But
Okay.
also Seiya was shielded a little bit more to your point. But again, it's not like this massive gap.
Yeah, that's true. And I think you're right to go the trade route because you put out the top 10 Royals prospects. How many of those were catchers?
That's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they have
got Blake
three.
Mitchell, Ramon Ramirez, and then you have Carter Jensen, who is just again like had a monster year, like huge EVs. I think could be in the big leagues as soon as late next year, but more realistically early 2026. But like they need catching depth in that system,
Yeah.
and I mean on top of that, they're clearing up the money, and the Royals get a good piece here, and now could still commit another chunk of change to somebody else too.
I think that's the way to go. I think the thing is I do like Santander's bat in this lineup better than
I do,
Seamus.
I do, but me too. But 2 years, 38 versus
5
what is it
years
going to be
100 maybe.
minimum? I think.
Yeah. Remember we said 4 years 80? I did, and now I'm looking like a
Well,
total
I
moron.
mean,
I
man,
mean,
yeah.
Freed is
Now look at this
218.
market, dude. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's just
crazy.
yeah. So yeah, he might just be way too expensive. So yeah, I could say he's the better fit, but Juan Soto is a better fit than Santander too. It's just things that just aren't very realistic, right? So I
It is
like
realistic though. Like I think this
somewhat.
with the reporter Rosenthal too. Like I think it's enough to push it that way.
I think we make that trade because
Okay.
say you add that bat to this lineup, he's still going to hit for power, right? He's not. He's still going to give you 25 to 30 home runs. It's just not the potential 40 that Santander is going to hit. And who knows? Maybe Bobby Witt Jr. does hit 50 home runs next year. I mean, why am I doubting him? I mean, he can do
Easily
whatever
could.
he wants. So yeah, I think we make that move. Um,
Now I got some extra money. I think to shell out though to the bullpen or to a starter or a few different things that you could do here.
So I had an idea for a low budget starter because when I'm looking at the Royals rotation right now, I love Cole Reagan's clearly at the top. Who doesn't? Seth Lugo's a stud, and so is Michael Waka. I am a Chris Bubich guy. I was talking him up a ton last season before he got hit with TJ, and I was pretty disappointed because I thought he was in for a big year. Then he came back and pitched to a 2.67 ERA in 30 innings with 39 strikeouts. I think this is a real arm for the Royals. So when we're saying sign big time starting pitching, we can, or we can go a different direction. Walk with me here. Spencer Turnbull. So Spencer Turnbull, when he was with the Phillies, got a little bit banged up, but bounced in between being a starter and a bullpen arm. And if you ask a Phillies fan, Every single person in Philadelphia wanted him starting over Taijuan Walker, but Dave Dombrowski gave Taijuan Walker a big time deal and said, "Yeah, we kind of got to use him. We got
Yeah.
to at least see before cutting him off." So, and Spencer Turnbull got hurt, but Turnbull, a guy who can go sit in the bullpen and be very good, or as a starting pitcher, I thought he looked great. What better of a situation, especially when he's a sweeper guy, sinker guy, kind of similar to Seth Lugo? Go over there, sit with a guy who went from a reliever to a starter and was one of the best pitchers in the American League last year. And it's not going to be very expensive. And you're taking a little bit of a flyer, but the Royals have a guy like Alec Marsh who potentially they could then slot into the 5 spot. Turnbull's not going to be expensive, but as a starter, I thought he looked great. It's a good
Mhm.
buy low opportunity in a spot where you've already proven you can transition a reliever to a starter. I love the fit of Turnbull.
I like that because also it's like an insurance policy too. If Marsh isn't looking great or Turnbull isn't looking great, you can plug one in the other, plug one in the rotation spot, and then the other into the bullpen where they could either be a long relief or maybe the stuff plays up a little bit more in leverage. So like the fact that both of those guys can pitch in relief and start, I like having two of those guys just in case one is trending more towards relief. I'm in on that. I like that addition.
So if we just added Turnbull and we traded for Seiya Suzuki, now I go to the bullpen. Unless you want to spend some more money on the offense, because I don't think it's a great idea to spend a ton of money on the rotation, because if you're not going to go get Burns, I don't think that this team needs another
No,
Michael Wacha, if that makes sense. Like
I
that
agree.
pedigree.
I agree. And I really think I really do believe that Noah Cameron can be a solid back end of the rotation starter. So
They
if
have
you
so much
added
then.
Marsh and you added Turnbull and you have the other arms that you have, like I think you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
One other trade before we get to the bullpen too, that I was just kicking the tires on was trying to buy low on Brett Beatty. And if you could like package together like a Carlos Hernandez who looked really good out of the pen, and the Mets need arms. Nick Lofton is a throw in, and then like a Daniel Lynch or somebody else or like a pitching prospect. I just want to throw it out there. We don't have to do it. I just wanted to mention it just in case it happens. And I'm like, damn, I wish I mentioned that. Like that would be a fun flyer. I just don't see the Mets doing it for pitching depth. I just don't think they
Well,
might as well
also,
just ride it out.
what position would Brett Beatty play? Because third base is taken.
Yeah,
I will.
exactly.
I'm like joking, but I'm not. I might write Michael Garcia in my top 100
Well,
players.
and the thing is,
Just to
in
make a statement. Just
you
to
make
make a
him
statement. You know me. I'm making
99 ahead
statements
of
out here.
Cal.
Yeah, Cal by Cal. We'll just start off hot.
Cal, Mike Cal. But yeah, no, like at that point, you're still rolling the dice. It's fine. I just wanted to put it on record. But I think you could spend here now, right? We didn't go mega deal on Santander. Who's a reliever that you think is worth like spending on that can make a huge difference?
So I think Tanner Scott is the real deal.
And the Royals were in on him at the deadline. There just wasn't a clear match there. I think Carter Jensen was like probably a little bit too much. They didn't quite want to do that. And then I think the Padres ended up just giving an offer that nobody was going to top. I like it. And we look, they didn't spend big here. We
Yeah,
traded. So go crazy. That this could be like a game changer in that rotation or
and then
in that bullpen.
and then you do more, right? You get Tanner Scott. I don't know how expensive it's going to be, and I really have an issue with teams signing relievers because I don't think that it often ends all that well. And I think that relievers, it's just a volatile position in baseball that I generally don't think that it's a good idea, which is why I haven't brought up Tanner Scott for any team except now, because I think a team in the Royals situation where it's clear that the bullpen is their weakest part of the team, right? The Royals are a great team, so it's not like the bullpen is bad, but it's clearly the weak point of the team. Like, this isn't a team that needs to go sign big time starting pitching. This isn't a team that needs multiple free agents in their lineup. They kind of have their nucleus and then they have their vets and they kind of all have their guys, and it's still a good offense as
And,
is.
and they don't have any bad contracts in the bullpen. Most of these other teams
Exactly.
have like at least one in there where it's like, even if it's not bad, it's like, okay, you're already paying a reliever a lot. Like, do you want to pay another one a lot? Like, this would be the one reliever that they're paying a lot of money for. The Urseg
And
trade
he's
was
a beast.
fantastic.
And he's a
Yeah.
beast. I mean, I'm watching him throw 99-mile-an-hour BBs to Ohtani,
He's
making him look
outlier.
silly.
He's an outlier fastball. He even if he's not recapturing the last 2 years for the duration of the contract,
But why
he's
not? Yeah.
too nuts an outlier to not be a good reliever.
Yeah.
I like it. I think this is the team that ponies up and spends here. It's a great fit.
I think we get Tanner Scott and Tommy Kahnle.
Ooh, okay,
So
yeah,
We get Tanner Scott and Tommy Kahnle adding to a bullpen of Lucas Urseg, Hunter Harvey, Schreiber, Zerpa, Lynch, Long, Stratton. I mean, that's a lot of arms here. Maybe you get rid of Stratton. I mean, he's 34 years old. He's coming off a year we had a 5 ERA. He's probably done. And then it's a lot of threes in this bullpen with Tanner Scott and Tommy Kahnle, and this team's fucking good. That's why I was like
I'm on the
really excited
bandwagon.
about doing them. And it's straightforward, right? We're not like, oh, what are they going to do here? Are they going to cut here? No, they're not spending all that much money. Tanner Scott's going to be their biggest deal. Then you trade for Seiya Suzuki because you already have three catchers, and Blake Mitchell is the best of all of them. So you're
Yeah,
not even trading the best one. You're trading a guy coming off a good year. You fill in that outfield spot. You were already good last year. This team's really good. I really
I
like
would
this
be
team.
so in on this. I'd be a Royals fan. Like,
Yeah.
just I already think I'm going to be rooting for them harder than a lot of other teams, but like I would be very, very in on that. The one other trade that you could float would be like a Bellinger to play center. But at
Mm.
that point, like,
And
I
I like
like this
Kyle
better.
Isbell. I like Kyle
And
Isbell because he's such a good defender out there.
he fills that role. And Isbell is more tolerable when you have other mashers. And
Yes.
if what Ken Rosenthal said was they want a middle of the order bat, Bellinger ain't that at this point. He's giving you value in other areas, but
Now's better.
he's not gonna be say as a better bat for what they need. Isbell's still gonna go get it for you in center. I think this team is darn good, and I would love the direction that they're heading if they did that.
And Royals fans, just so you know, Seiya Suzuki is coming off a year where he slashed 283, 366, 482 for a 138 WRC plus, and that's after he just slashed 285, 357, 485 in 2023 with a 128 WRC plus. This is a guy who consistent back-to-back 3-win seasons, 3.6 last year, while playing well below average defense. This is a middle of the order bat. He's going to be 30 years old next year. I still think that he can swing it. Love the bat when he was coming over anyway. And it's just produced. He's been a great bat. And then you're putting him in your ballpark. I expect that to tick up even more. Maybe instead of 21 home runs, we get 25 this year with India now, too. This lineup is exciting. The rotation is exciting. And the bullpen with the guys we added just got a lot better. This team probably wins the division unless the
Yeah,
Guardians have something to say about it. And of
yeah,
course, the
unless the
Tigers.
Guardians do some other crazy stuff, but I don't know if they're going to. Like, I agree. I think this team is force, and a lot of these international players that come over, like sometimes hitters wise, like the fourth year can really be that like burst. It's usually third or fourth. We kind of saw that burst to a degree last year, but I think he could easily take another step forward this coming season and keep building. But a 138 WRC plus doesn't grow on trees,
No.
and that would be a much needed addition to this lineup. And then, the bullpen can be a strength I mean, this is a pitching centric team with that bullpen and that rotation.
Yeah.
And then also the offense is better. Like they're going to be tough to beat.
This offense, Jonathan India DH as of now, shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., first base Vinny Pasquantino, catcher Salvador Perez, second base Michael Massey, right field we have Seiya Suzuki, left field we have MJ Melendez, third base Marco Garcia is probably the best player on this team, and then Kyle Isbell in center field. The rotation looks like Reagans, Lugo, Waka, Bubic, and then you have Turnbull or Alec Marsh or potentially Daniel Lynch is back, and maybe Kyle Wright is healthy at
He's the
some
depth
point.
arm. He
Yeah,
should be healthy.
who knows? And then in the bullpen, it's a bullpen headlined by Tanner Scott, but you also have Lucas Urseg, Tommy Kahnle, Hunter Harvey, and then a list of different guys, right? You got Zerpa, you got Schreiber, you got Lynch, you got Long, a couple of guys who I thought looked good in the postseason. Royals fans, welcome to the window being open. How does it feel? It's got to feel
I love
very,
it.
very good.
I
So
love it.
I think that's it. I think we
That's
went
it.
over a ton of topics. I don't even know how long we went, but I hope.
This
Go
this
ahead.
might be 2 hours. I would say with the Kevin Henry spot, this might be a 2 hour episode.
It's directed by Steven Spielberg. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this episode. And again, the best way to support, especially during this off season, rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the video as well. And you got to let us know. We just threw at you about 17,000 takes. I think I counted correctly. You had to have hated one of them or loved one of them. Let us know in the comments section below. We will be back on Friday, and make sure to keep a lookout on our Instagram and on our Twitter. Mailbag. We're back, off-season mailbag, so be sure to, we're going to post it Thursday early morning we'll record Thursday late afternoon for the Friday episode. So make sure, get all your questions in there. And I think that's it. For Arm Layton, I'm Peter Apple. See you on Friday. And with that, thank you, everybody.